There are silences that don't come from the absence of sound, but from the absence of meaning. They settle in gradually, between the pauses of daily life, the empty hallways of the house, the memories that return uninvited. Silences that weigh more than any noise ever could. As time goes by, the world seems to shrink. Visits become less frequent, plans lose their urgency, conversations fade into the background. And then on an ordinary afternoon, comes that strange feeling, as if time has stopped, and you've stopped with it. Many call this loneliness, others emptiness. Some say it's longing, but maybe it's something even deeper, a calling from the soul, asking for meaning, for connection, for presence. In these quiet moments, questions arise. They make no sound, but echo loudly within. Where did my strength go? Is there still something ahead? Where do I find support now? These aren't cries of despair. They are deeply human questions. Because even those who have always been strong, who have cared for others, who have faced loss and transformation, also need, at some point, to be held. And it is precisely here, between the silence and the search, that this reflection begins. On how quiet, constant faith can become a real companion for the weary soul. The soul seeks support. Yes, faith, that word that sometimes feels abstract, but for so many, translates into something deeply concrete. Presence, comfort, shelter. When everything seems to slip through our fingers, it's natural to look for a kind of support we can't see, but we can feel. Something untouched by the world's instability, by absence, fear, or loss. This is where spirituality steps in. Not as an escape from reality, but as a way to remain whole within it. This video is an invitation to gentle reflection. How can faith, and the spiritual practices that arise from it, sustain the soul on days when the body grows tired, in moments when the heart feels lost? It's not about doctrine or a specific religion, but a deeper search. How can spirituality, in any sincere form, become a true emotional support system? And more than that, how can it offer us inner peace, strengthen our emotional resilience, and restore a sense of meaning that doesn't rely on circumstances, but blooms from within the self? When emptiness arrives. Because the truth is that, at some point along the journey, emptiness arrives. And it's not due to a lack of love, nor a lack of faith. It's because life slowly changes, quietly. And over time, the things that once filled us, caring for children, the rush of work, frequent visits, dreams for the future, all of it begins to fade away. What remains is space. Silence. A stretch of time that feels far too wide. Some try to fill that space with distractions, TV shows, or repetitive tasks. Others look out the window and watch the world move on, with no rush to look back. It's a kind of loneliness that's hard to explain, because it's not physical, it's existential. Perhaps what hurts the most isn't the absence of others, but the feeling of no longer being needed, as if usefulness was left behind, along with youth, projects, and big life moments. This feeling might come like a cold breeze, or a strong wind. It can show up as unexplained tears or long silences between one thought and the next. And all of that is human, deeply human. But it's precisely in this moment, when the soul feels empty, and time seems to have lost its direction, that something begins to stir inside. It's as if a dormant part of the self begins to awaken, not with a scream, but with a whisper. An inner voice gently asks, "Could I still bloom? Is there something inside me that remains alive, despite it all? Does the spirit long to be cared for too? And maybe this voice is the beginning of a reunion, not with the past, but with what is most intimate and eternal in each of us. Faith itself. Because when emptiness arrives, it doesn't come to punish. It comes to remind us that the soul was never meant for abandonment, but for connection. The presence that remains. Yes, faith. That quiet reunion that happens when the outside world goes silent, and the inner world begins to speak. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand. It simply shows up, a constant presence, sometimes forgotten, but never truly absent. Faith has this curious power, it stays. Even when it feels distant. Even when we doubt. Even when we no longer have words to pray. It lives in the simple act of carefully lighting a candle. In that prayer repeated since childhood. In the memory of a song that spoke of God and made us feel embraced. In the way the heart finds stillness, even for just a moment, when opening a sacred book. Some find this faith in God, in saints and angels. Others feel it as a mysterious presence that moves through life. As if something greater is guiding everything with meaning, even when we don't understand it. Regardless of the name, faith reveals itself as invisible comfort. And that comfort is what so often holds up a weary soul. Faith is not magic, nor a formula. It's a meeting, and many times a reunion. It shows up on hard days as an inner anchor. When everything feels unstable, it remains steady, even if silent. When answers are missing, it offers trust. When the heart closes, it gently suggests a gesture of openness, however small. Faith is a space within the soul where it's always possible to rest. And that doesn't depend on going to a temple or following every ritual. You just have to want to open the door. You just have to sit with yourself, close your eyes, and say, I'm still here. And I believe something greater is here too. That simple acknowledgement already begins to transform the way we deal with pain, with loneliness, with fear. Because faith, when lived sincerely, doesn't deny reality. It illuminates it. It reminds us that, despite all losses, the soul never loses its ability to feel love, to find meaning, to trust. Even on the days when we can't pray, it prays within us. Even in the moments when we doubt, it holds us. Faith in the end is this, a presence that remains. And it's this presence we begin to rediscover, little by little, when we give the soul permission to believe again. Healing rituals, that presence of faith so silent and constant, often becomes more noticeable when it transforms into practice. Not practice as obligation, but as an act of self-care. That's where rituals come in. Small moments, simple gestures, yet filled with deep meaning. They don't need to be grand. Sometimes, 5 minutes of silence in front of a cherished image is enough. A whispered Our Father through tears. A candle lit not to ask, but to give thanks. Each person has their own way of touching the sacred. Some pray the rosary with devotion. Some read scripture for strength. Others simply feel peace while gazing at the sky, talking to God like an old friend. These spiritual practices work as emotional anchors. They bring order to our inner time, renew hope, and create a space of intimacy with what is eternal. They also create rhythm. Rhythm for the soul. Rhythm for days that, without purpose, all seem the same. And even when the body no longer moves as it once did. When climbing stairs is tiring, when the eyes read more slowly, spirituality remains accessible. Because faith doesn't require physical strength but inner presence. It gently settles into routines with kindness and respect. Some people find great comfort in lighting a small altar, arranging meaningful objects, writing in a gratitude journal, listening to old hymns, or simply breathing consciously, offering each breath as a prayer. These gestures are not silly. They are ways of remembering who we are and what we are connected to. They help us stay grounded in a world that sometimes spins too fast for those who live more slowly. And you don't need to feel okay to practice them. On the contrary, it's on the hard days that these practices support us most. They are like invisible hugs, repeated daily, that hold what words cannot express. Spiritual rituals don't heal by removing pain, but by teaching us how to walk through it with dignity, awareness, and presence. And over time, they create a space of trust within us, a place we can return to whenever we need, like a spiritual home. Intimate, safe, quiet. It is in that home that faith takes form. And it is there, between a lit candle and a whispered prayer, that the soul finds rest. Walking together. Although spirituality blooms in inner silence, it is strengthened through sharing. Because there is something deeply healing in the simple act of being with others who are also seeking meaning, faith, and comfort. We are not alone on this journey. Spiritual community, whether it's a parish, a prayer group, a circle of friends who pray together, or even casual encounters with those who share the same faith, acts as an extension of grace. In times of emptiness or pain, being with others who are also facing challenges reminds us that we are not exceptions. Everyone carries their own cross. Everyone seeks peace. And in that mutual recognition, spiritual solidarity is born. Sharing a prayer, hearing a word of comfort, reaching out to someone in pain. All of these are ways of living spirituality. And when we care for another, we often heal forgotten parts of ourselves. The presence of a community offers the support that isolation can never provide. Because when the soul is fragile, hearing that someone has walked the same path and found light is in itself a balm, a silent relief, a new hope. Moreover, being with others rekindles values that may have been dormant. Compassion, empathy, listening, service. These actions are prayers made through gestures and can be just as powerful as sacred words. It's important to remember that it's not about being surrounded by many people. Often, a single genuine connection is enough to restore trust. A heartfelt phone call, a weekly meeting, a message sent with care. Shared faith amplifies comfort. It creates bonds that go beyond blood or daily life. They are spiritual ties, built not out of obligation, but through a deep affinity of the soul. And over time, that companionship becomes a form of mutual support. One day I comfort you. The next you remind me of hope. And so we go on together, in a cycle of care that carries us through time. Because even those with strong faith need, from time to time, to be reminded that they are not walking alone. And that is what community offers. Embrace, testimony, and presence. It is there, in the midst of simple and sincere sharing, that we realize faith, though personal, becomes so much stronger when it is lived in communion. Resilience and peace. Over time, something begins to change, not on the outside, but within. After the silence, the practice, the reconnection with faith, and the sharing with others, the soul begins to breathe in a new way. It doesn't mean the problems disappear. Pain doesn't vanish by miracle, and loneliness might still visit now and then. But now, there's something different living in the heart. It's as if a light, once extinguished, has slowly begun to shine again. As if, in place of constant anguish, there's now a space of calm, of understanding, of acceptance. This is what we call inner peace. And along with it, resilience is born. That quiet, steady strength that allows one to keep going even when the road is hard. The faith nurtured with patience, the rituals practiced with devotion, the companionship lived with presence. All of it builds a solid inner foundation, capable of holding the spirit even on the days of downfall. The person who once felt useless or forgotten now recognizes a value in themselves that no longer depends on roles, appearances, or approval. They feel connected to something eternal, to a love that does not withdraw, to a meaning that cannot be lost. This transformation is silent, but powerful. It allows pain to be felt, but not to destroy. It allows longing to exist, but not to suffocate. It allows time to pass, but without taking away what truly matters. Faith heals, not by erasing the pain, but by making it bearable. It reveals that there is beauty even in new beginnings, that even the weariest heart can still welcome joy, and that even the most wounded soul is capable of renewal. This is the truest fruit of spirituality lived sincerely, a firm, luminous, and peaceful inner life. Pragunter Ao ChatGPT. It's still time to bloom, because deep down that's what it's all about. Allowing yourself to bloom, even after so many seasons. The soul does not grow old. It does get tired, yes, but it also renews itself. It grows quiet, but it never goes out. You are not just what you've lost, nor only what was left behind. You are also what you are becoming. Even now, even here, even in this stage of life. Faith, when rediscovered, doesn't just comfort. It rekindles the desire to live with meaning. It reminds you that there is still something to be shared, learned, and offered. And if all of this touched you in some way, even in silence, even through held-back tears, then perhaps this is the right time to begin again. It doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be sincere. Start by lighting a candle, reciting an old prayer, calling someone you love, telling your heart, gently, it's still time. Yes, it's still time. To welcome, to give thanks, to trust, to open your arms to faith like welcoming back an old friend. It's still time to bloom, because the spirit, when nurtured with love and presence, always finds a way to be reborn.